le Parlement. Avec des mesures encore plus généreuses qui vont aider encore plus de gens, on parle maintenant de 107 milliards de dollars pour les travailleurs, les familles et les entreprises qui traversent des moments difficiles à cause de la COVID-19. On introduit maintenant une seule prestation, la prestation canadienne d'urgence, pour aider les travailleurs qui ont perdu leurs revenus en raison de la pandémie. Que vous soyez admissible à l'assurance-emploi ou non, cette prestation est là pour vous aider. Les gens recevront 2 000 $ du gouvernement fédéral à tous les mois pour les 4 prochains mois. Nous allons lancer un portail en ligne le plus vite possible pour que vous puissiez présenter votre demande rapidement et recevoir de l'argent dans les 10 jours qui suivent. Yesterday, our plan to help Canadians save jobs and support our economy was adopted by Parliament, with more generous measures to help even more Canadians. We're now talking about $107 billion to support people and businesses. We launched the new Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which will provide $2,000 a month for up to 4 months to people who are not getting paid as a result of COVID-19. This will replace the 2 benefits we announced last week to make it even simpler for you to get help. An application portal will launch as quickly as possible, and people should start receiving money within 14 days of applying. As part of this plan, we'll also be boosting the Canada Child Benefit for families in May. Parents already know how much the CCB helps with the cost of raising kids. By increasing the CCB, we'll put even more money in the pockets of families to help them navigate these uncertain times. We'll also be supplementing the GST credit, which is sent to low-income Canadians every few months. And for people who are still paying off their student loans, we're putting a 6-month interest-free moratorium on their Canada student loans. You can find more information on what else we're doing and how to access your benefits at canada.ca. I'm sorry to say there appears to be a text scam going around on the new emergency response benefit. I want to remind everyone that the government's website is the best place to find reliable information on everything we're doing. Vous pouvez consulter le site canada.ca pour obtenir plus d'informations sur ce que fait notre gouvernement pour contrer la COVID-19 et sur la façon d'accéder à vos prestations. Malheureusement, certaines personnes ont reçu un message texte qui semblait venir du gouvernement à propos de la nouvelle prestation d'urgence. C'est une arnaque. Je veux vous rappeler que le site web du gouvernement est le meilleur endroit pour trouver l'information fiable sur ce qu'on fait. C'est clair que la pandémie met énormément de pression sur nos systèmes de santé, sur l'assurance-emploi et sur tout l'appareil gouvernemental, mais sachez qu'on fait tout ce qu'on peut pour raccourcir les délais. Je sais que les factures s'empilent pour les gens et la pression monte. Ça inquiète bien des familles et avec raison. Mais on travaille le plus rapidement possible pour mettre l'argent dans vos poches. On sait aussi que les gens à l'étranger ont encore de la misère à trouver des vols pour rentrer chez eux et on continue de travailler avec les compagnies aériennes pour les ramener au pays. Hier, Air Transat a annoncé 2 autres vols partant du Salvador et de Guatemala à destination de Montréal. En même temps, notre gouvernement est en constante communication avec nos partenaires internationaux qui font eux aussi face à cette crise. On regarde ce qui a fonctionné ou pas pour eux et on essaie de voir si on ne pourrait pas s'inspirer de leur succès. Earlier today, I spoke to G20 leaders. One thing is clear. We can only overcome COVID-19 if we take action together as a global community. So we're going to do whatever it takes. That means making sure the World Health Organization and our public health agencies have the resources they need. It means working together to develop a vaccine, identify treatments, and increase testing. We're also expanding manufacturing capacity for critical medical equipment and working to keep the supply chains moving to get that equipment to the people who need it. Our government is helping companies in Canada retool their manufacturing facilities to produce the things we all need. On the economy, the G20 has also made significant investments to help people and businesses get through this challenging time. And we're going to be working closely together to coordinate our efforts to protect the global economy. COVID-19 is a global crisis and demands a global response. Now, more than ever, we must work with our allies to protect people and the economy. And on that note, I announced this morning that I'm appointing Kirsten Hillman as our new ambassador to the United States. Ambassador Hillman is a gifted and brilliant diplomat. She was instrumental in securing a good deal for Canada and for Canadians during NAFTA negotiations. Most recently, Ambassador Hillman played a key role as we worked with our southern neighbors to temporarily close the border while keeping trade flowing. As we fight COVID-19, we must protect the supply chains on which we depend for things like fresh vegetables, medicine, and supplies for our healthcare systems. Our ports, railways, and trucks are vital to bringing in the things we need, and I want to thank all the workers who are keeping our country moving. Every day, our government looks at what we need to do better to help you and keep you safe from this evolving crisis. So in response to the fact that too many travelers are still not self-isolating upon returning to Canada, we're taking greater action. I've been very clear on this. The premiers, Dr. Tam, and public health officials have all been very clear on this. If you've just returned from abroad, you have to go home and stay home for 14 days. But some people have not been taking this seriously. They're stopping by the grocery store on their way home from the airport. They're getting together with friends after being away for March break. This kind of conduct is not just disappointing, it's dangerous. So now, a 14-day quarantine will be mandatory for all Canadians returning home from abroad. We are implementing the Quarantine Act to keep all Canadians safe. If you do not comply with these instructions, you could face serious fines and even prison time. C'est absolument essentiel que tous les voyageurs se placent en quarantaine pour 14 jours lorsqu'ils rentrent au pays. Ça fait des semaines qu'on le répète, mais certains ne semblent pas prendre nos recommandations au sérieux. C'est non seulement décevant, c'est dangereux. On va donc rendre l'isolement obligatoire en évoquant la loi sur la mise en quarantaine. Si vous refusez de suivre les instructions, vous pourriez recevoir une grosse amende ou même écoper une peine de prison. On a tous un rôle à jouer pour freiner la propagation du virus. Ce qu'on vous demande, c'est pas compliqué. Restez chez vous. Lavez-vous les mains. Gardez vos distances. Appelez vos amis plutôt que d'aller les voir. Et surtout, si vous retournez de voyage, vous ne pouvez en aucun cas sortir de la maison pendant 14 jours. On a tous hâte que la vie reprenne son cours, mais pour ça, il faut absolument que tout le monde fasse sa part. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va maintenant passer aux questions des journalistes par téléphone. Modérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you. Merci. La première question nous vient de Michel Lamarche, TVA Nouvelles. À vous la parole.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau. J'aimerais vous entendre sur ces 16 tonnes d'équipements qui ont été... que vous m'entendez. Donc, je veux vous entendre sur ces 16 tonnes d'équipements qui ont été envoyés en Chine en février. Pouvez-vous aujourd'hui expliquer cette décision aux Canadiens alors qu'il semble que dans bien des provinces, on en manque d'équipements?
C'est une pandémie globale et ça exige des réponses globales. Le Canada comprend que d'aider les autres, c'est une façon de s'aider aussi. Mais je peux rassurer les Canadiens que d'abord, on a toujours pu combler les besoins que les provinces nous ont demandé par rapport à l'équipement. Et dans les jours à venir, on va recevoir des millions d'items de plus pour des fournitures et d'équipements médicaux pour pouvoir combler tous les besoins. On voit aussi que les compagnies canadiennes sont en train de fabriquer de l'équipement et des solutions. Nous allons avoir l'équipement nécessaire pour garder les Canadiens en sécurité, tout en faisant notre part à l'international aussi, parce que c'est une crise globale. We recognized from the very beginning that this is a global crisis that requires global cooperation and response if we are to keep all of us safe and if we are to keep Canadians safe. At the same time, I can assure everyone that the federal stockpiles have been sufficient to meet the needs of the provinces until this point. And in the coming days, we will be receiving millions more items that are necessary right across the country, at the same time as our businesses, companies, and manufacturers are tooling up production to make sure that we have enough, not just for Canadians, but for friends and allies around the world who need it.
Thank you. Merci. La prochaine question, Hélène Buzetti, du Devoir. À vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau. J'aimerais revenir à votre projet de loi qui donnait des pouvoirs de taxation et de dépenses jusqu'en décembre 2021. Vous nous avez bien expliqué pourquoi votre gouvernement pensait avoir besoin de flexibilité pour faire face à la pandémie, mais vous n'avez jamais expliqué pourquoi vous pensiez en avoir besoin aussi longtemps. Alors, pourriez-vous nous expliquer la logique de décembre 2021 et le regrettez-vous?
C'est une situation, comme vous savez, imprévue, imprévisible et jamais vue dans l'économie mondiale, dans la situation canadienne. Nous avons reconnu que nous avions besoin de mesures hors de l'ordinaire pour répondre à cette crise. On a voulu donner de la flexibilité au gouvernement pour pouvoir répondre à cette crise qui, on ne sait pas combien de temps ça pourrait durer, mais on a très bien compris et on a travaillé avec les partis d'opposition pour résoudre cette préoccupation et on va continuer de s'assurer que les mesures nécessaires aboutissent pour les Canadiens.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Merci. Thank you. The next question is from David Ingram from Reuters, Ottawa. Please go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Prime Minister. President Trump yesterday said he wants.
Sorry, David. I need you guys to raise the volume. I can't hear them.
Okay, sorry. Is that better?
Yes, that's better. Thank you, David.
All right. President Trump said yesterday that he wanted to reopen the U.S. economy by Easter. Mayors of border towns in Canada are telling us they are petrified by the idea of a whole bunch of Americans coming north, possibly with the virus. How concerned are you by his comments, and what are you going to do to stop this? Is there any way you can kind of put some sort of security presence on the border?
We will continue to work with the United States to ensure that the border measures we put in place are respected. We have closed the border temporarily to all but essential travelers, and we will continue to work with the American administration to ensure that we're doing everything we can to keep our country safe and to keep Canadians safe in our case. We will continue to adjust as things unfold as necessary, but we will be continuing to follow the best advice of the scientific community on doing what is necessary to keep Canadians safe as a priority.
Merci beaucoup. Dernière question au téléphone.
Thank you. Merci. The last question is from Bruce Campton-Smith from the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Prime Minister, good morning. Just wondering, why was the quarantine for travelers arriving from outside the country not made mandatory sooner? Before the March break, travelers came home, before the border was closed to all foreign travel. And are you worried that this delay may have contributed to the spread of the virus in Canada?
Right across the country, we've seen Canadians following the guidelines, taking very seriously the recommendations of public health agencies. We have seen people staying at home. We have seen people keeping 2 meters distant from each other. We've seen people engaged in hand washing and using hand sanitizer. We know that the vast majority of Canadians have been following the guidelines set out for their own protection and for the protection of all of us. Unfortunately, are a number of people who have not been following the guidelines that are there for their protection, which is why we've had to take this next step of bringing in the Quarantine Act to ensure that Canadians who do not follow the instructions to self-quarantine for 14 days, self-isolate for 14 days immediately upon re-entering Canada, they will be facing fines and perhaps even jail time.
Merci beaucoup. On va maintenant passer aux journalistes ici.
Hi, Ashley Burke, CBC News. A week and a half ago, you told Canadians to come home. More than 1 million Canadians have since then. Can you tell me about the decision-making and the rationale behind waiting until now to make it mandatory to undergo a 14-day self-quarantine rather than a week and a half ago?
There was a requirement from the very beginning, instructions given to Canadians returning that they needed to self-isolate for 14 days. And many, many, many of them did. Canadians have been following the instructions and the rules and the guidelines set out by public health because they know it's about protecting their own safety, protecting that of their loved ones, and protecting the integrity and the health of people who work in our healthcare system. Unfortunately, there have been too many people who have not, and that's why we have to take this further step of making quarantine mandatory and bringing in enforcement measures as well.
And one of the challenges is enforcement with self-mandatory quarantine. Are you asking people to report if they see someone breaking the rules or the law?
Public health will be following up in many, many cases to ensure that people are following these rules, and enforcement will happen as enforcement does, as in various ways by our police and enforcement officers.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. Nous reconnaissons que beaucoup de gens vont suivre ces instructions. Nous allons faire des suivis. Santé Canada va faire des suivis avec beaucoup de gens pour vérifier qu'ils sont effectivement en isolement. Et s'il y a des gens qui refusent de suivre, bien, on a déjà vu plusieurs cas dans les nouvelles où les gens se sont fait arrêter pour ne pas avoir suivi les instructions de Santé Canada.
Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Trudeau, vous demandez aux gens de faire des sacrifices, de faire leur part. Pourquoi ne pas demander aux grandes entreprises de cartes de crédit d'accorder une période de grâce aux gens? Il y a des gens pour qui la carte est pleine, puis ils continuent de payer 20 d'intérêt. Ce ne serait pas le moment pour eux d'accorder une période de grâce?
Tout à fait. C'est une conversation qu'on est en train d'avoir avec les grandes banques au Canada. Je peux souligner que le ministre Morneau a un dialogue régulier avec les banques. On est en train de regarder, de les encourager, de prendre des mesures comme ça, en même temps qu'on regarde pour mettre en place des mesures pour avoir de l'accès au crédit pour les Canadiens qui coûteraient énormément moins cher que ce que les cartes de crédit exigent. Okay. I can assure you that the finance minister has had conversations directly with the banks about credit card interest rates. We recognize that they are a significant challenge for many Canadians at this point. That is why we are encouraging them to take action to alleviate the burden for Canadians. At the same time as we are looking on our end at making credit more available and less expensive for Canadians to be able to make it through the next few months.
Good morning, Prime Minister Janet Silver, Global News. Global News has learned that the Trump administration wants to have U.S. military troops stationed within 30 kilometers of the Canadian-U.S. border to cut back over fears with regards to COVID-19 and illegal border crossings. I want to know if you think this is necessary, and if you or any of your colleagues in your government had any discussions with the Trump administration about this.
Canada and the United States have the longest unmilitarized border in the world, and it is very much in both of our interests for it to remain that way. We have been in discussions with the United States on this. Le Canada et les États-Unis ont la frontière non militarisée la plus longue au monde et c'est dans notre intérêt des deux pays de le garder comme ça. Nous sommes en discussion avec les États-Unis sur cet enjeu.
Hi, Prime Minister Molly Thomas, CTV National News. Can you give us a little bit more clarity on that? I mean, what does it mean to have discussions on this, and what does this mean for Canada?
We have highlighted that the fact that the Canada-U.S. border is the longest unmilitarized border in the world is something that has benefited our two countries and our both economies tremendously, and we feel that it needs to remain that way.
I want to ask about, there's more than 30,000 cases alone in New York. That's a state that borders parts of Ontario and Quebec. Would we ever ban essential goods or people coming in specifically from that hotspot?
I think we will always take measures that are necessary to protect Canadians, as we've demonstrated. At the same time, we understand that part of protecting Canadians is ensuring a good supply of food, of medical supplies, of necessary equipment across our border. We will continue to look for ways to make sure we're keeping Canadians safe while providing us with the things we need.
Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. Prime Minister, on your call with the G20 leaders today, was there any discussion or a decision made on the call from the UN for $2 billion in aid for developing countries to fight the coronavirus, including help with testing kits in Africa and other gear needed?
We talked about a number of things. We talked about the need for a coordinated global response. That is something that the G20 is particularly well suited to move forward on, and we need to make sure that we're continuing to exchange information and align in the actions we take. We talked about the need to flatten the global curve of this pandemic, which means beyond just individual countries doing what's necessary for themselves, we need to work together to have an impact that goes beyond our borders. We talked about the need for global economic support for citizens, for businesses. The G20 represents 85% of the global GDP. We know that we have the capacity to stave off and to positively impact the economy at this time of significant stress. And so we pledged to work together. And we also talked about the need to help vulnerable countries that don't have either the science or the health systems to be able to keep their populations safe, including through investments through global organizations like the UN or the WHO or the World Bank. We also specifically talked about the challenges facing Africa and how we will be there to support Africa as they face this pandemic as well.
So does that mean that, the question was, is Canada and other countries actually sending money? And additionally, Saudi Arabia is the chair of the G20. Did the price war over oil prices come up, and what's happening there?
As I spoke about yesterday, we will be participating in international efforts to fight this virus. We know that support for vulnerable countries who are struggling with the ability to combat this virus is not just about being altruistic, it's about protecting Canadians as well. This virus will possibly face resurgences even once we've handled it in Canada and in many countries. Our ability to minimize those resurgences will be linked to our ability to help and work with countries in more dire situations. Nous reconnaissons que de participer à de l'aide internationale pour lutter contre la COVID-19, c'est pas juste une question d'altruisme, c'est une question qui est bonne pour les Canadiens. Nous savons que d'empêcher une résurgence dans plusieurs mois de ce virus, une fois qu'on l'ait contrôlé au Canada, pourrait être empêché par de l'action concrète dans des pays vulnérables présentement. C'est pour ça qu'on va participer avec les Nations Unies pour aider les pays en détresse.
Je vous remercie beaucoup. C'est ce qui mettra fin à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.
Merci tout le monde. Bonne journée.